Good morning. Happy Sunday. Let's start seated today. Thanks for being here. Oh, just a nice comfy seat. Something where your spine can settle in with some ease. Find your way into a breath that is conducive of that physical ease. Give ourselves about 60 more seconds here. And as it feels appropriate, let's allow the eyes to blink open. If they are closed, we'll turn our gaze over towards the right and start to get into some spinal articulation, really thinking about the rotation of the cervical spine here. At the same time, thinking about how kind of the chassis of the system is responding to that, right? So can we stay neutral across the shoulder girdle as we rotate? And then we'll respond back. Bring our head back to neutral. And we'll work our gaze over to the second side, left side. Same thing, staying neutral across the shoulder girdle as we begin our rotation. And then we'll find our way back to neutral. From neutral here, let's take the hands palms down on the legs. So wherever the legs have found themselves, let's go palms down. And we're gonna think about rotating from the lumbar here. So a little hand pressure on that left side as we rotate towards the right. Really thinking about our ability to aid and assist with that downward pressure. And we'll come back to neutral. And same thing with the second side. So right hand presses down. And we get that capacity for rotation. Whole torso working here. And then we'll come back. And let's tuck the chin and let the middle of the cervical spine bow into that flexion state. And then we'll bring our head back to neutral. Really think about how you can realign the spine here. So getting ourselves into this top space, extending the legs out in front of us, and allowing for the whole body to sit in this L. And then let's take a brief little forward fold, just kind of a check-in. And we'll walk ourselves back up into a staff. Right knee bends. Let's take that right leg across our body. And then we're going to go into a unique twist here. Generally, we twist against the hip rotation. We're going to twist with the hips. So the left hand's going to come behind us, and that right elbow can come on the inside edge, that medial edge of the right leg. The key here is we want enough strength on that lateral edge that we don't push the leg out wide. So we're keeping that knee roughly vertical and twisting to the open side of the shape. Really driving length in the spine as you rotate. And then we'll relax back to neutral. Extend that right leg and follow that forward into a fold. Seeing if you've found a little more space to explore this forward shape. And then eventually we'll walk ourselves back into staff. Left knee will bend. We'll take that left foot to the outside edge, and right hand's coming behind us. Left elbow to that inner space. Again, keep that left knee pointing straight up as we rotate, and then drive down so you get that lift capacity. Spine elevating into the twist so that there is more space for the vertebrae to rotate. And then we'll come back to neutral and extend and follow that leg extension into a little forward fold. Again, just kind of checking in to see if we've crafted more space already. And then we'll walk ourselves back up into staff. Right knee is going to bend once again. We'll take that right foot to the outside edge. We'll take the more traditional version of the twist this time. So the left elbow is working towards that lateral edge of the right thigh. Right hand is behind you. As you get that left arm planting, don't forget about the right hand pressure to drive the spine up so that you can receive more deeply this twist. And we're going to be here a little bit longer, so slow down your breath. Try to feel, especially the thoracic joint, how that is responding to each cycle of breath. Last exhale here. And we'll return back to neutral, extending the right leg and following that into a brief transitionatory fold. ourselves to staff. Left knee bent, left foot to the lateral edge. Traditional twist. Right elbow working to that lateral edge of the left thigh, pressing and energizing into that left arm to get the elevation. Really finding that capacity to rotate. Finding our ability to breathe and ease and soften here. When it feels appropriate, that last exhale, we work ourselves back and release into this forward fold. And we'll give ourselves just 20 seconds here just to settle. Enough time to settle and feel the spine variance. And when it's appropriate, we'll walk ourselves back into seat. Let's have our blanket handy, and before we head down, let's just take that from a shelf fold to a block style. We'll set that relatively next to our hips so that we can easily access it, and then we'll head onto our backs. Letting your spine settle against the neutrality of the mat, being at ease with your breath. And then when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees into a bent position. If they're not already there, we'll engage our block style blanket and slide that underneath the tailbone. So lifting the tailbone high enough to make that possible so that we can settle into a little gentle bridge here. Kind of a prep for the more horizontal rotation. See if we can free up a little space around the sacrum. We'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll press into the toe mounts and heels equally enough to lift the belt line, slide that prop out from underneath us, set that to the side. For the moment, keep the knees bent, take the arms out towards cactus or T, have some space for the legs here. And with an exhale, let's allow both knees to fall over towards the left. And then we'll inhale back to neutral. Think about the weight settling in the feet once again so that the lateral edge of the right foot lands, balances, and then we'll exhale. We're going to the left again. And then inhale to neutral. And then we'll exhale to the left again. Inhale to neutral. And exhale to the left again. Inhale to neutral. And one last time, we'll exhale to the left. As you land here, think about lifting that right leg, thigh towards the torso, or you can think about bottom of the foot towards the top of the left thigh. Does not need to make it on top, but we're just elevating towards that space. So it's thigh towards the torso, or you can think bottom of the foot to the top of the thigh. And we're just gonna hang out here for a moment. Breathe in. This puts a lot of, so the moving that top leg puts a lot of ask on the lateral chain on the right side. Think about relaxing into that lateral chain to continue to fall into or to deepen into the twist. So there's this very powerful mystic. And he has an apprentice who's been with him for years and years and years. And today is supposed to be the last day of the apprenticeship. And so it's a little bit of a surprise when the mystic tells the apprentice that there's one final task that he needs to accomplish. The apprentice eagerly asks what it is. And the mystic pulls out of seemingly nowhere a tray of the most perfect cookies you can imagine. He picks one up and he hands it to the apprentice. And he says, "Your final task. I need you to transform this cookie into a human." And the apprentice mouth falls open. When you're right, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Let that right side land. Push down into the toe mounds and heels and lift your belt line into a little bridge. Think about the neutrality of that anterior line. And then release the tailbone back down to the mat. Extend your left leg down the mat, left toes pointed towards the ceiling. And let your right knee fall over to the left side of your body. Left foot rotates with you. And extend your right leg to what is comfortable. Now you have some options here. You can lift that right foot so that we can connect the hand and the foot. Or you can stay with the leg lower, whatever feels most appropriate for you, but let's choose the choice that is the most appropriate. And then ensure that the right arm is able to be relaxed and connected. So if cactus isn't working, maybe reverse cactus that, wilted cactus that, or you can go palm up, hand by your side. But let's make sure we're relaxed on that right side. And so with this mystic, the apprentice knows that there are always rules and guidelines, and the success or failure of the task is always illuminated through the rules and guidelines. So he asks the question, what are my guidelines? And he receives an even more shocking response. There are none. And so dumbfounded, he kind of takes this cookie and he stumbles out of the mystic's home. He makes his way home kind of in a daze, sits down, he puts this cookie on his desk and he's just staring at it. More or less defeated. When it feels appropriate, let's bring that right leg back across our body. Let the left toes point towards the ceiling. Push the left heel away from you so you get that elongation of the left side of your body. And then let's bend our left knee to mirror our right. And as you come into this little neutral position, think about the potential of asymmetry across the hips. Settle and breathe so that your spine and the musculature supporting the spine can relax. And then we'll start our second side. So arms find their way to cactus or T. Exhale and let the knees fall to the right. Feel that space. And then we'll inhale our knees back to neutral. Let that lateral edge of the left foot land so you know you've found your way back to neutral. And then we'll exhale over to the right. Inhale to neutral. Exhale to the right. Inhale to neutral. Exhale to the right. Inhale to neutral. And one more time, we'll exhale to the right. This time we're going to move that left leg so that the thigh gets closer to the torso, or maybe the top of the right thigh. The bottom of the left foot comes towards the top of the right thigh, whatever feels most appropriate for you. And then we'll settle into this nice deep twist. So as that feeling of defeat washes over the apprentice, it eventually passes through him. And he starts to think about all of the resources available to him. And he starts booking appointments all over town. And the first appointment he books is with this head scientist. Figures, if there's anyone who's going to be able to help transform this cookie into a human, it'll be the scientist. He goes down, he presents the problem that he has. He presents what he's been told to do, why it's important to him. And the scientist just looks back at him and laughs. Picks up the cookie, kind of looks at it, gives it back to him. Says, hey, the only way you're going to transform that cookie into a human is with the creator herself. And so this apprentice takes the cookie, leaves the scientist much more dejected than he expected to be. Last 30 seconds here. But all hope isn't lost. There are other appointments that have been made, backups in case the scientist couldn't help. When you're right, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Land here, settle here. Think about that lateral edge of the left foot. We'll press ourselves up into a little bridge, little anterior reset. And then we'll release the tailbone back down to the mat. When it feels appropriate for you, extend that right leg down the mat, right toes towards the ceiling. The left knee is going to transition over, the right toes follow. And then we'll extend that left leg. Once again, you have the choice of connecting the foot and the hand, or you can keep that foot a little bit lower, whatever feels appropriate for you. Control the breath here. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring that left leg back across our body. Drive that right heel away from you so you get that length on the right side. And then we'll bend the right knee to mirror the left. And really feel into the spine here. Big, deep section of rotation there. Eventually, we'll allow the bottoms of the feet to come together and the knees to fall out wide. We've done essentially no work on the hips, right? But there's a lot of space coming from the spine-hip interface, all coming from the spine side, but available for the hips nonetheless. So the next appointment is with this famous religious scholar. And this apprentice goes down to see her. And he presents the problem, presents the cookie, presents why it's important. It's his final task in his apprenticeship. She takes the cookie and she observes it. She hands it back to him. And she starts laughing. And through her giggle, she says, you know, the only way you're going to turn that cookie into a human is if you find the creator himself. When you're right, when you're ready, knees return back to neutral. Find that full balance. Let both knees fall towards the left. Take your right hand all the way over to the left side. We're going to press our torso up so that we can rotate here and work our way down onto our front side. You have a blanket, may or may not come in handy. The thing that I really want you to think about here, spine should be relatively open, so we should have the capacity to rotate. The thing I really want you to think about is the shoulders. Protect the shoulders by keeping them active. You can stack the hands, but lift into that shoulder girdle. You can drop the hands a little lower. This kind of forces activation. Whatever feels appropriate, but don't let that anterior shoulder capsule collapse. It just put the humeral head in a really weak position. Not worth it to get this spinal rotation if we injure our shoulder structure. And so the apprentice leaves the religious scholar, his second best hope, more dejected than he expected to be. Slowing down our breath, being really at ease here. Once you feel like the shoulders are protected, then you can really start to think about how that rotation is happening in the spine and what you can do to maximize that benefit. Last 30 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, finding strength in the hands so that we can press ourselves up. We'll let the body rotate back to neutral. Let the knees fall over to that second side and give yourself that opportunity to find your way onto your front side here. Once again, protecting the shoulders is our primary objective, and then settling into the twist that's just going to happen because of the shape we're in. Once you settle, you can start to find ways to deepen into the shape. The apprentice's next appointment is with the wise woman. She's not his last option, but she is the last option he wants to get involved with. And so it is with great fear, apprehension, and hope he walks in and presents her with the cookie, his problem that he needs to transform it into a human being. She asks why, and he explains it's his final task in his apprenticeship. She looks at the cookie, asks what the rules of the engagement are. He explains that there are none. She picks up the cookie again. She hands it back to him. She says, I'm sorry, but the only way you're going to transform this cookie into a human is if you find the creator himself. And so very dejectedly, the apprentice leaves, knowing that his final option, his final appointment of the day, is with an occult magic practitioner. He's not typically interested in the dark arts, but there were no guidelines, and it is the final task of the apprenticeship. And so he's willing to do anything needed. Last 60 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll work our way back onto our spine. The knees point towards the ceiling in that neutral setup. And let your body observe what we've crafted thus far. Think about the neutrality of the mat underneath you, supporting your spine, realigning all of that rotational articulation we've worked ourselves through. Back into this neutral stack. Think about the musculature supporting the spinal column stack and how it's been asked to move, manipulate, and how now it's rewarded with this space. As you find that fluid, easy breath. So that the musculature can be relaxed enough to receive. And then keeping the entirety of your body from your shoulders down to your feet stationary, let's start to rotate the neck and head like an exaggerated version of no, where we feel how the back of the head presses against the mat as we move. Think about using the mat and the pressure that your head is creating against it as an opportunity to lengthen your cervical spine. So the top of the head is always pushing up beyond your mat towards the wall or space behind you. We'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds just to explore this head rotation, head movement. When it feels appropriate, bring our head back to neutral. One more time, let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. Again, just receiving this openness in the hips. And so incredibly reluctantly, the apprentice makes his way to this occult magic practitioner. And he explains his task. He presents the cookie. And he says, I know occult magic is powerful. I know that it's dark. I know there are consequences. I don't want to know what needs to be done, but I am asking you for your help. That's 20 seconds here. Bring our knees back to neutral when you're ready. We'll push down into the toe mounds and heels and lift ourselves into a nice little neutral bridge. Slowly releasing that tailbone back down to the mat as the tailbone connects with the mat. Let's pull the thighs in towards the rib cage. Give ourselves a nice little squeeze here. Feel that hip capsule compression. Really think about how the spine can elongate as the tailbone guides down towards the bottom of your mat, towards the space in front of you. And then slowly, gently, delicately, we'll release our feet back down to the mat. And ask yourself here, if there's anything that you might want, need, or would benefit from prior to your version of Shavasana. And if there is, let's offer that to ourselves now. If you have everything that you need, if you're ready for some stillness, let's drift into a shape where we can appreciate some stillness. Just dark magic practitioner. Practitioner looks at the cookie, hands it back, and says, "I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do that will transform this cookie into a human being. You're going to need the creator herself for that." And so dejectedly, the apprentice leaves. He goes back to find his mystic. Comes in, he hands the cookie over, and he says, "There's no way to do this. I don't know what this is. I don't know why you asked me to do this, but this is an impossible task. I've gone everywhere. I've thought of everything. The only way I could do this is if I found the creator herself." We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. Our wrists and the ankles. Elbows, knees, shoulders, hips. Head, neck. Thoracic spine. Lumbar spine. Eventually, the entirety of the body moves, and we'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in. We'll find our way back into a seat. In the seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes closed. The mystic starts laughing. And the apprentice says, "Why is this funny to you?" The mystic says, "Just eat the cookie, man." With your next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself of the powerful creator within you? So powerful you can turn a cookie into a human being. And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you. Love you. Have a beautiful day. If I see you tomorrow, we'll be back to move. And if not, see you next week. Love you. Mwah.